briefly describe the structure of the following: brain, eye, ear. So students, here we have three important organs: brain, eye and ear. Let us learn the structure of these organs. So first one is the brain. So we all know that brain is the control center of the body. It coordinates the entire organs present in the body. So it is a part of the nervous system. It belongs to the nervous system and its function is to control and monitor the functions of the other organs which is located in the body. Now this brain is protected by a layer of connective tissues. These are called as cranial meninges, because this protection we can find in the spinal cord also. So the layer which is present in the brain, they are called as cranial meninges, and they are made up of three layers. So this meninges is made of three layers. An outer layer is called dura mater, a middle layer is called arachnoid, and the inner layer is called pia mater. So here, if we zoom out and observe the layer, the outermost covering of the brain, it is made up of three layers. So just below the skull bone, the outermost layer is the dura mater, the middle one arachnoid, this is the middle one, and the innermost one is the pia mater. Now all these three together we call it as meninges. These are cranial meninges. So similarly we can see the same meninges covering the spinal cord. They are called as spinal meninges. Now brain is being differentiated into three regions: forebrain, midbrain and hindbrain. So the forebrain, so this outermost region, the bigger one, is called forebrain. The middle brain and this one which is blue in color, it is the hindbrain. So for our convenience, we have divided the brain into forebrain, midbrain and hindbrain. So coming to the forebrain is further divided. It has got three structures: cerebrum, thalamus and hypothalamus. So this is the cerebrum and this region is the thalamus and this is the hypothalamus. So totally the forebrains is further divided into three regions: cerebrum, the majority one, thalamus, this region, hypothalamus, which is present just below the thalamus. The main function of this forebrain is it acts as a thinking region. So it is a place where the decisions will be taken. It is the thinking, it has got the reasoning power. So the majority of sensory informations will be done by the forebrain. Now let us learn about each part in detail. The first one, cerebrum. The majority of the brain, cerebrum, it is called the largest part of the brain, and overall it occupies 4 to 5 parts of its total weight of the brain. So 4 to 5th of the total weight of the brain is being occupied by the cerebrum. This cerebrum is divided into two regions. They are called cerebral hemisphere, the right cerebral hemisphere and the left cerebral hemisphere. These two hemispheres are separated by a longitudinal cerebral fissure. So a longitudinal cerebral fissure like this will run in between the right and the left part of the cerebral hemisphere. Now these hemispheres, the right and the left cerebral hemisphere, they are joined together by a bundle of neurons or a bundle of nerve fibers, and this bundle of nerve fibers are called corpus callosum. So corpus callosum is a bundle of nerves which connects the right and the left cerebral hemisphere. Now talking about the cerebral hemisphere, they are covered by a layer of cells and these are called cerebral cortex. The cerebral cortex is also called as grey matter, and there is one more thing, the inner region is called as the white matter. The cortex is called grey matter in the cerebral hemisphere and the inner region, which is medulla, it is called as white matter. Now the cerebrum has a sensory regions and association areas. So sensory regions are one which receives sensory impulses from the various receptors present on the sense organs, and it also have association areas where the information comes, it is analyzed, a decision is taken, and there is a motor regions which has been supplied with the motor nerves, and the decision which is taken by the cerebrum will be carried by the motor neurons present in the motor regions. So these decisions will be carried to the respective muscles so that the muscle can be contracted. So as a result, the cerebrum has got all the three regions: sensory region, association region and the motor regions. The next one is the thalamus. It is situated at the center of the cerebrum. It is the main center which acts as a relay station. It coordinates for sensory and motor signaling. So all the signals, that is the sensory and motor signals which is received or which is sent by the cerebrum, first comes to the thalamus and from there it will be relayed. So we call this as relay station. The next one is hypothalamus, which is just present below the thalamus. It is at the base of the thalamus and it has the number of centers that regulates the body temperature, the urge for eating, drinking. So it is an important part which plays in a homeostatic condition, maintaining the body temperature, the urge of eating, the feeling hungry or thirst. All these centers are present in the hypothalamus. And it is a site where the expressions of emotions are stored, like the excitement, pleasure, fear, anxiety. So all these expressions are under the control of the hypothalamus. Next, coming to the midbrain. So the midbrain is not further divided into any region. It is located between the thalamus of the forebrain, so thalamus of the forebrain, and pons of the hindbrain. So below these two regions, the midbrain will be present. So this is thymus of the forebrain and below this is the pons of the hindbrain. So between these two we can find the midbrain. So midbrain is connected to the sense of sight and hearing. So the vision and the hearing center is present in the midbrain. Coming to the last part, that is hindbrain. So hindbrain includes three regions: pons, medulla oblongata and the cerebellum. So this is the cerebellum. So this is pons, this is the medulla oblongata and the cerebellum. So it has got three regions. So pons, it is a bundle of nerve fibers that lies between medulla oblongata and the midbrain. So between medulla oblongata and the midbrain we can find the pons. It connects the lateral parts of the cerebral hemisphere together. So the right and the left cerebral hemisphere, the lateral parts of these hemispheres are connected by the pons. Cerebellum, this part, it is the large and well-developed part of the hindbrain. It is also called as little brain in itself. So this we consider as a little brain. It is located posterior sides of the cerebral hemisphere. So this is the cerebral hemisphere to the posterior end, and then above the medulla oblongata, this is last part of the brain, that is medulla oblongata. Above this we can find it, and it is responsible for maintaining the posture and equilibrium of the body. So the body posture and the balance is maintained by this. The medulla oblongata, which is the posterior and the last part of the brain, it is located beneath the cerebellum. It lowers and extends itself into the spinal cord. From here it extends into the spinal cord and leaves the skull through a foramen magnum. So foramen magnum is a canal through which the spinal cord will be entered. So the hindbrain includes pons, cerebellum and medulla oblongata. So students, these were the parts of the brain. It has been divided into three regions: forebrain, midbrain and hindbrain. Forebrain includes cerebrum, thalamus, hypothalamus. Midbrain, it is not differentiated further. Hindbrain includes pons, medulla oblongata and cerebellum. So students, now the next part is the eye. So let us study the structure of the eye. So eye is the spherical structure. So we all know the function of the eye. So eyes are the organs which helps us for the vision. So we can see this world through our eyes. Now this eye, it consists of three layers. So there are three layers. The outer layer is composed of sclera. So here we can see sclera, choroid and retina. So these are the three layers. So outer layer is sclera, the middle one is choroid and the inner layer is the retina. Now the sclera includes cornea as well. So this is the cornea. So sclera, it is an opaque, that means light cannot pass through it. It is opaque, that is usually known as white portion of the eye, and it is composed of the dense connective tissue. So the white portion of the eye is nothing but the sclera. It is opaque. In this region, the light cannot pass inside, and it is composed of dense connective tissue. So in the sclera, the second region is cornea. It is a transparent anterior portion of the eye that lacks blood vessels and is nourished by the lymph from the nearby area. Now this in the cornea. So here we can see the front portion of the eye is known as cornea, which is transparent in nature, through which the light enters. Now this region lacks blood vessels. It is not supplied with the blood vessels, but instead it gets its nourishment by the lymphatic vessels which is present nearby, and it is slightly bulged forward. So we can see this is slightly bulged forward and helps in focusing the light rays with the help of the lens. So just below this there will be a lens. So it is bulged forward so that the light rays are focused onto the lens. Now this too comes in the first layer of the eye, that is sclera. Sclera and cornea becomes the outermost layer. So only this cornea portion is only present in the anterior end, which is slightly bulged. Now the middle layer. The middle layer of the eye is vascular in nature. Vascular means it is supplied with the blood vessels, and it is called choroid. So the second layer is called choroid. Now this layer includes ciliary body in the front. So these are the ciliary body, iris. So this part, iris, which is the colored portion, all these are a part of the choroid layer. So choroid layer includes the choroid, ciliary body and the iris. So the choroid tissue lies next to the sclera and contains numerous blood vessels. Now this layer has been supplied with the blood vessels that provides nutrient and oxygen to the retina and the other tissue. Now below this choroid there is a retina. There is one more layer called retina. So this third layer is the retina, and this gets nourishment by the blood vessels which is present in the choroid and to the other tissues or cells present in the eye. Ciliary body. Now these structures, ciliary body, you can see here this part on the either side. These are called ciliary body. It is thin. They are very thin over posterior regions. That is, the choroid layer is thin over the posterior regions. As it comes front, it becomes thicker and thicker, and this thickness gives rise to the formation of ciliary body. And this also contains blood vessels, and muscles are present called ciliary muscles. So these muscles helps to hold the lens in its position and helps in accommodation to change the shape of the lens so that there can be a proper vision. Now the next one is the iris. Now at the junction of sclera and cornea. So here at the junction of sclera and cornea, there is a colored structure which is called as iris. So iris contains many pigments in this region. So this pigments leads to the color of the eye. It can be the blue color, black, brown. So all these colors of the eye are due to the presence of the colored portion of the eye called iris. They have many colored pigments within it. So this is the visible colored portion of our eye. Now the eye contains a transparent biconvex elastic structure which is called as lens. So this is the lens just present behind the iris. The lens is held in its position by the suspensory ligaments that is attached to the ciliary body. Now these are the lens and this is the iris. Below that, now you can see this portion. These are the suspensory ligaments. So the lens through the suspensory ligaments, it is attached to the ciliary body. So this is also a ligament and this is the ciliary body. Now these portion, the lens is attached to the ciliary body through the ligaments. The suspensory ligaments attach the lens to the ciliary body. The lens divides the eyeball into two chambers. The anterior chamber, the front one is called anterior and it gave rise to aqueous humor, and the back chamber, which is posterior, it gave rise to vitreous humor. This is vitreous humor and this is the aqueous humor. So the lens divides the eyeball into two chambers, anterior aqueous and posterior vitreous. Now the innermost layer of the eye is the retina. So the third layer is the retina. So the retina contains many different layers in turn. So there is a layer ganglion, that is a nerve cells, the middle bipolar cells and the outermost photoreceptor cells. So three layers will be present. A layer of ganglion cells, bipolar neurons and photoreceptors. Now the receptor cells present in the retina, that is the innermost layer. If you go like this, it is innermost. So these region contains two types of cells in the retina. They are rod cells and the cone cells. So here we can see this is a rod cell and these are the cone cells. Now the rod cells and the cone cells, they contains pigments. So the rhodopsin pigment and the iodopsin pigment. So here we can see these structures. So these are the structures or the disc which contains visual pigments. So in the rod cell, the pigment present is rhodopsin, and in the cone cell, the pigment present is iodopsin. Now these pigments are light sensitive. So the rhodopsin is sensitive for the dim light and it is responsible for the twilight vision, that is during the evening vision. In the cone cells, the pigments present, that is iodopsin pigments, are sensitive for the high intensity light, that is the bright light. They are responsible for the daylight and the color vision. So that is why they are responsible for the daylight vision, since it is sensitive for the bright light. Now the innermost ganglion cells give rise to optic nerve fiber. Now the ganglion cells give rise to optic nerve fiber through which the information is connected to the brain, will be taken to the brain. So these are the structures of the eye. Eye has got three layers. They are sclera, choroid and retina. So sclera in front, it has got transparent layer called cornea. Sclera is whitish, it is opaque. Choroid, it is supplied with the blood vessels as it is thin in the posterior region. As it comes front, it becomes thick, give rises to ciliary body. And in the front, there is an iris. So all these things forms a middle layer. Next, there is a transparent lens which is held with the suspensory ligament that binds to the ciliary body. This divides the eyeball into aqueous chamber and vitreous chamber. Now, the innermost region is the retina. Retina is again further differentiated into three regions: the ganglion, bipolar and the photoreceptors. The ganglion regions gave rises to optic nerve fiber. The photoreceptors are rods. The photoreceptors includes the rod cells and the cone cells. They have pigments, visual pigments. The rod has got rhodopsin pigment and the cone cells have got iodopsin pigments. These pigments are sensitive to light. The rhodopsins are sensitive to dim light and are responsible for the night vision. And the cone cells have got iodopsin pigment. They are sensitive for the bright light and they are responsible for the day or the color visions. Rod cells are responsible for the black and white visions. So this is the structure of the eye. Now let's learn about the third structure, the ear. So students, ear are the sense organs which help us for hearing, and it also helps in maintaining equilibrium, that is balancing our body. Now the ear is divided into three portions: external ear, middle ear and internal ear. So it is divided into three regions, that is external or the outer ear, the middle ear and the inner ear. So middle ear is only this much and this region is the inner ear. So it is divided into external or the outer ear, the middle ear and the inner ear. Now the external ear consists of ear pinna. So it is the ear pinna and external auditory meatus, which is also called as auditory canal, and the tympanic membrane. So this membrane is called tympanic membrane, or it is also called as eardrum. So these are the parts of the external ear, the pinna, auditory canal and the eardrum. Now the function of the ear pinna is to collect the sound waves and to send them. So it collects the sound waves and it is transferred to the inner ear. The external auditory meatus, that is the auditory canal. It is a tubular passage which is made up of cartilage in the external ear. Now this external auditory meatus is also called as auditory canal. The sound waves collected from the ear pinna passes through the external auditory meatus or the auditory canal and reaches the tympanic membrane. So tympanic membrane is also called eardrum. So this is the eardrum. The sound waves collected from the outer ear enters into the auditory canal and hits the eardrum. So the tympanic membrane is a thin membrane. So eardrum is made up of thin membrane that lies close to the auditory canal. It separates the middle ear from the external ear. So this is the middle ear and this is the external ear. So this region separates the middle ear from the external ear. Now the middle ear, this region is the middle ear. It consists of the Eustachian tube. So the tube is called Eustachian tube. This tube is connected to the pharynx. Its function is to equalize the air pressure in both the sides of the tympanic membrane. So in both the ears, the Eustachian tube equalizes the air pressure and they are connected to the pharynx. The middle ear contains 3 bones. They are called ear ossicles, and these bones are, the middle one is incus, outer one is malleus and the innermost is stapes. Stapes, incus and malleus. So stapes are the smallest bone present in the body. So these 3 bones are called ear ossicles. So when the sound waves hits the eardrum, it is first passed to the malleus, then incus and then to the stapes. So they help in sending the sound waves. The internal ear. This is the internal ear. It is divided into labyrinth, the bony labyrinth and the membranous labyrinth. So we call them as bony labyrinth, and inside one is the membranous labyrinth. They are filled by a fluid called perilymph and endolymph. So these are filled with the fluids called endolymph and perilymph. Now the membranous labyrinth, it is further divided into vestibular apparatus and cochlea. Now this region is vestibular apparatus and this region is the cochlea. The vestibular apparatus, so this region, the whole thing is called vestibular system, is the central sac-like part that is divided into utriculus and saccules. It is divided into utricles and saccules. Now this region is mainly involved in maintaining the body balance and posture. So it is required for the maintenance of body balance and posture. Now it has got 3 semicircular canals. So here we can see the 3 semicircular canals are present, which contains cristae and ampullaris. So here we can see the cristae and ampullaris at the end of the semicircular canals. Now these structures have got sensory cells called macula. Now this macula is responsible for maintaining the balance and the posture of the body. So the most important part, that is the innermost part of the ear, contains vestibular system. So this system have sensory cells called macula. They are required for maintaining balance and the posture. Now the another region which is called as cochlea. Now this cochlea is the most important part and it is responsible for the hearing. It has the hearing organ and the hearing organ is called organ of Corti. So the cochlea consists of organ of Corti. So this is the organ of Corti. It consists of 3 membranes or canals. So the lower canal, middle canal and the upper canal, and in between we can see the organ of Corti. Now this organ of Corti is located on the basilar membrane. So this is the basilar membrane, and above this we can find the organ of Corti. It has got hair cells. Now these hair cells are responsible for receiving the sound waves and then converting it into the the impulses obtained by hair cells will be transferred to the sensory neurons, that is the auditory neurons, and then to the brain. So the innermost ear has got vestibular apparatus which helps in maintaining the body posture. The cochlea, which is an main organ for hearing, it includes organ of Corti. Organ of Corti is located on the basilar membrane. It has got sensory cells called hair cells. So these cells are responsible for receiving the sound impulses and converting them into the auditory neuron or sensory neuron. The impulse will be taken to the brain and the brain analyzes. So here in this question we studied the structure of brain, eye and ear.